Hello and welcome to the PE Insights podcast, conversations about physical education with me, Nathan Walker. Thank you for joining me. You're very, very welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as we delve into another insight around physical education. Hello and welcome to the PE Insights podcast. First of all, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, your family and your friends. Thank you for your continued support. I hope you have a wonderful time over the next couple of weeks, and here's to a healthy and successful 2024. This will be the final PE Insights podcast episode of 2023, so keep your eyes peeled for the new episodes as we move into the new year. I'd like to start by calling you to action with two requests, please. The first one is a request. The second one is an option for you. If you have enjoyed the content so far, could you please provide a rating on your podcast provider, whether that's Apple or Spotify? Please go and click the stars, and if you'd be so kind to leave a comment, I would really, really appreciate it. And secondly is recently a few of the listeners have been so kind enough to buy me a coffee or a book through the Buy Me a Coffee link on my Twitter or X page. If you've enjoyed the content and you feel like you'd like to support me, then please know that that's an option for you. It just helps me and motivates me to find the time to record even more episodes, and the additional funding will only enhance the quality of future podcast episodes. So again, two calls to action there for you, and I'd love you to act upon one or both of them. Today's episode is a really exciting episode where I catch up with the inspirational Neil Moggan. Neil is the founder of Future Action and the creator of the Rise Up online early intervention mental health and wellbeing teacher training course that supported over 100 schools to transform the student and staff wellbeing. He's also created the Recover Roadmap to help teachers implement trauma-informed approaches to physical education, of which you'll find out more in today's episode. Neil is also writing a book on Rise Up and on mental health and wellbeing and the state of physical education in schools in the UK, and that's to be published in the new year. And Neil was previously a director of sport, health and RSHE, working with PE departments, improving their physical education, school, sport and physical activity. Neil is incredibly passionate about what he does and an inspirational speaker, so I hope you do enjoy today's episode as much as I did. Neil, good morning. Welcome to the PE Insights podcast.
Good morning, Nathan. Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating such a brilliant podcast. I've loved all the previous episodes, and it's awesome to see this vibrant community that you're developing, so well done, mate.
Oh, thanks, Neil. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on and have a conversation with me. So looking forward to it. Let's get started then. So tell us and the listeners about your educational journey so far.
Okay. Firstly, I was taken to lots of sports clubs as a child, so I had a great base for subject knowledge around PE. But I really struggled at high school, and it was PE that got me through it. Like I wasn't the most confident child, but I loved my football, and my PE teacher was brilliant for taking us to fixtures and training us at lunch times, and we had some great memories and built some really strong friendships through that. I then went off to university and studied sports management and strategic business. And then I had a couple of years working in insurance after uni, not really sure what I wanted to do. And one of my best mates, he was a PE teacher at the time, and we'd see each other quite a lot. And every time he'd come bounce into the pub or to the football ground, and he'd be raving about what a brilliant day he had at school, and was just so passionate about it. And we'd always take the mickey out of him for talking about school, but his passion for it just made me think, cool, that sounds a great job. It sounds much better than what I was doing stuck in an office at the time. Yeah. And so I applied to go to UEA to do my PGCE, and I had a brilliant interview day. And I remember standing in the car park just about to leave, thinking my life is going to change for the better here. Like becoming a PE teacher was just such a fantastic thing to do, and it was absolutely awesome. I had a brilliant first year on my PGCE with Dr. Penny Lamb and the UEA cohort, and there was a brilliant teacher at that time who was a director of sport at a school in Cliff Park called Richard Stockins, and he built pretty much the whole school through PE back in the sports college days. And he was a real inspiration for me. And that was the ambition as a PGCE student, was, could I become a director of sport one day? That's what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And from there, I joined a lovely rural school, Acle High. Every day was just such fun. I became head of year within 2 years. Within 5, I was head of department. And I stayed there for 9 years, really got to know the community. I absolutely loved it there. We had some awesome times. And then the opportunity came up to become director of sport, which I was really passionate about. And that was in a inner city school in Norwich. It's a really challenging area, but I was really up for the challenge of totally rebuilding the whole department based on what I'd done at my previous school. And then about 6-7 years ago, we had a presentation from the trust, and they were talking about a 13-year life expectancy difference for our children, depending on what side of the main road outside the school they were born on. So
Wow.
we tended to serve the children from the lowest socioeconomic area, and that made me really angry. I was really frustrated, and then from there, that really fueled my passion for transforming children's life chances. So we did some really interesting work around reducing obesity. Sheffield Hallam University researchers identified us as one of the top 5 schools out of 250 in the country of similar demographics for our work improving obesity, and that fed into the government's obesity strategy. And then from there, I really wanted to focus around mental well-being. So we did a lot of work around early intervention mental wellbeing programs, and we got the AFP Quality Mark with distinction for our work around that, around lockdown and lockdown recovery. And then from there, we did a lot of work around financial literacy. And then just before I left my school became really challenging. Like, the brilliant head teacher left, chair of governors changed, trust changed. There was total flux within my own department. I had 3 of my best members of staff off on long-term maternity and paternity leave. And that was great for them, but it was really challenging for me as director of sport in terms of trying to maintain those high standards. And for the first time in my kind of teaching career, I was struggling with relationships, with behaviour management, and school was really hard. My own well-being was in quite a rocky place at that time, and that's where I found trauma-informed practice. And trauma-informed practice was an absolute game changer for me. It just made me feel like I was teaching with my hands free again, and just reconnected with my young people, refound those relationships. And that last term before I left my school to concentrate on Future Action was just incredible. So over lockdown, I set up Future Action to support colleagues around kind of early intervention mental wellbeing programs, trauma informed PE, and it's kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. We're now supporting over 150 schools around the world in various settings, from international, state schools, primary schools, PRUs and schools like that. So it kind of got to that point where I had to make that choice. It's like, as you know, Nathan, it's not easy trying to do 2 things at the same time with the podcast and your day job. And it was the right time for me to step out of the classroom to try and support more teachers. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. I feel so grateful to have those experiences as a PE teacher. It's just been incredible kind of 20s and 30s for my life, and as we look forward to the next stage.
Amazing. Yeah, and I must admit, I've had a look at the Future Action stuff, and it's so powerful. And not only are you doing that, you're also writing a book at the same time. How's that gone for you?
Yeah, so another reason why I wanted to step out of the classroom for a little bit was for about 2 years, I'd wanted to write a book around early intervention mental wellbeing. So combined with Dr. Liz Durden-Myers and the team at PE Scholar. And for the last year, I've been writing that book. There's kind of 4 parts to it. So the first part sets the context about why we're in the position that we're in around mental wellbeing. The second part looks around early intervention mental wellbeing programs. The third part looks at trauma-informed practice, and then the fourth part looks ahead to the future about what we need, what we can do to make children's childhoods much better.
Brilliant. So that's, looking forward to finally getting hands on that when that comes out in the new year. So tell us a little bit about physical education, Neil. Why is it important to you, and why is it important to young children as a subject?
Yeah, it's given me absolutely everything. Like, I've met my wife, my best mates through PE. It's given me so much, travelled the world. Like last week, I went to Antigua to watch England play cricket and just had a brilliant time with my friends. And I just think, like, I wouldn't have done that without PE, without school sport, without physical activity. And whatever emotion I've experienced in life, I've experienced it first in through PE or sport. And it's just given me a great practice run through life's highs and lows. So I have so much personally to be thankful for PE, and like for the last kind of 19 years I've really wanted to pass that gift on to as many young people as possible so that they can benefit from it. And that looks like different things to different people depending on their passions and interests, but it's really how can we help them through the gift of physical education.
Yeah, amazing. It's so many people say similar things when they come on, that it's because it shaped their life so positively. It's why they've gone into it as a subject themselves. Talk to us a little bit then about trauma informed practice. Share your knowledge with us if you could.
Yeah, definitely. So my journey with trauma informed practice started around kind of the summer of 2023. We'd had some introduction to trauma informed practice as a whole school, and some of the movements and techniques that they were showing were used like repeatable actions. I was like, we do that in PE. We do that when we're running, we're jogging, we're skipping, we're cycling, and then pushing against an object, pushing against a resistance. I was like, we do that in PE. Like when you're making contact with an object, or the contact tackling in rugby, or in the fitness suite, pushing against weight. So I was like, actually, physical education is doing a lot of these, like widening the windows of tolerance and naturally kind of calming the amygdala, to kind of to help young people quite naturally. So that's kind of where I started looking at it, and then I did my trauma informed practice practitioner's diploma, level 5 diploma through Trauma Informed Schools UK. Kind of that September to Christmas time. I was just really experimenting, prioritizing relationships, really being intentional about creating psychological safety for my young people, because they were really struggling at the time. And the change overnight was within a week, I'd say was very dramatic. Like I reduced my send outs from 95% from the summer term to the winter term. My most challenging GCSE students, they went up 2.5 grades in a term. The attendance went up, the engagement went up. My own personal well-being went through the roof. Their well-being improved because there was just so much less conflict in the classroom and the PE rooms, and it was just such an eye-opener about how when we're intentional about relationships, how it amplifies all our other pedagogies.
Okay.
And that's kind of the big takeaway that I found from that.
So what tips would you have maybe then for creating the safest place for learners to learn?
Yeah. So kind of in terms of managing behaviour, I have a 5-step process, but I'll just talk about kind of the first one about creating psychological safety. So when we use our face, voice, body to really communicate that feeling of safety, that's really key to kind of trauma informed practice. So like that summer term, I don't think I smiled the whole term. I wasn't angry at the children, but my face was very neutral, and a neutral face is perceived by children that have suffered childhood trauma as that you're angry with them. So the children were thinking that I was angry with them when I wasn't. So I had to train my face to fake smile for about 2 weeks, walking between around the school, and it made such a difference. Like life reflects what we project, and kids suddenly went from like wanting conflict over really tiny little things, just like answering the register, to all of a sudden like high-fiving, having a great time, just really bouncing into the classroom. And it was just such a game changer around our face, voice, body. Other things we need to be mindful of as kind of male PE teachers is our voice. Now we're often quite loud and booming, but in the area that I was working, where there was lots of domestic violence, that wasn't necessarily a strength. So in my previous school, that had been a strength. In my next school, I had to really kind of tone down my voice and think about it, and think about my kind of open body language, and make sure my arms weren't crossed. Even though I do it quite naturally, it was like, right, I have to be quite intentional about this now. And stuff like high fives, thumbs up, handshakes, all that kind of stuff, fist bumps, that was huge in terms of getting that human touch back again, because humanity are being cast as kind of a sign of danger over lockdown, like that that kind of closeness,
Mm.
and there was that natural distance post lockdown. We all had our face masks on and stuff, and all of that stuff was affecting the quality of our relationships with our young people, and the distance between us as teachers and students. So to really be intentional about that suddenly amplified all my other kind of teaching pedagogies from there.
Amazing. So what else in terms of like behaviour management then worked well for you?
Yeah, so then we thought about unnecessary rules. So we had this rule around kind of every child had to take their shoes off when they came in the dance studio to register at the start of the lesson, and it was just causing so much conflict. And as teachers, we were just looking down at their feet rather than at their faces. So we got rid of that, canned that rule, and straight away we prioritised our welcoming faces, stuff like the high fives and things like that. And that was a huge game changer. And then kind of the other stuff around behaviour management is stuff like the neurosequential model, where kind of understanding what children are going through when they're in socially disengaged, rather than in the social engagement system. So we're bringing in polyvagal theory here, and the need to relate before we start reasoning with our children. So often, like as PE teacher, particularly early on in my career, like a child would be doing something that I found challenging, I'd challenge it, and they'd just carry on rather than actually think, right, I need to get this child's brain in a better position and then reason with them. And it's amazing what happens when you suddenly just distract a child by, oh, have you looked out the window at that, or have you seen this, or how's your family member, and all of a sudden then you can have that rational conversation and integrate the prefrontal cortex. So stuff like Dan Hughes's PACE model is just fantastic. Dan Hughes is a very famous kind of neuroscientist out in America, in Canada, that does a lot of work around with deeply traumatized children, and that's the PACE stands for playfulness, acceptance around the behavior, curiosity about why, and empathy. And again, that was a huge game changer for me in terms of supporting my most challenging children. And it's like, when I'm talking about prioritizing relationships, I'm talking about those children that we find it really difficult to build relationships with, not the easy ones, not the ones that's quite natural for us as PE teachers to develop, but our most challenging children, that really investing in them rather than writing them off.
Yeah. So did you see a change in their sort of motivation as well when you shifted your approach? How were they like portraying themselves as learners in the classroom?
Yeah, definitely. So I talk about one lad who had a really challenging background, really was getting sent out of most lessons every week across the whole school, wanted to be sent out of lessons. And he came into one of my exam PE classrooms, and he was desperate to get chucked out. He was like picking up chairs and all sorts. But like, he wasn't near anyone else. So I was like, look, I just want you to sit at the back of the class today. I'm not going to ask you any questions. I just want you to feel really safe. You can choose where you want to sit. And I didn't ask him any questions that day. And then I checked in with him at the end of the lesson. Then the next week did the same, but so this time I want you to answer your name in the register. And if you want to answer any other questions, just stick your hand up and I'll come to you. But make sure you're really confident that you know the answer. And he answered a couple of questions, and then the next week it built from there. And within about 4 weeks, he was the best person in the whole class. He was flying. He was so motivated. He was one of the ones that his grades went up 2.5 grades just by me being prepared to take that step backwards with him and not do the targeted questions and not be really explicit about expectations, just to make him feel safe in that classroom. Then that was huge with him. And we started to work out together in the fitness suite. We'd use the fitness equipment as the third object to open up that conversation.
Yeah.
And then he'd start to share a bit about his life, and it was fantastic. We had a similar impact in his science lessons using a similar approach, and that was great. And like, when I left my school, he's the person I feel the most guilty about kind of stepping away from the classroom to concentrate on future action, because we were doing some awesome work with him, and that rankles with me to this day, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine. So many like powerful anecdotal like bits of evidence about the power of relationships. It's for me. I'm not going to talk out of turn, because there's lots of different ways to approach behaviour management in schools, and I certainly go into many schools that have very different approaches. But I think we have a real good opportunity to build those relationships as physical educators, and we need to bring ourselves forward a bit more and make those safe environments, don't we? I think So powerful. And are you seeing, you're doing some work with some great schools at the minute that are shifting towards that? How are they finding the change, perhaps, to what they've done before?
Yeah, we've been blown away with how brilliant teachers have implemented this. So Norfolk County Council have funded this program for all secondary and special schools in Norfolk. We also do similar projects up in Liverpool. With Youth Sports Trust and Sport England, and I just how teachers are implementing this is just been brilliant. Like I think talk about Kate Reynolds. Kate's going to be a guest on your podcast in
I
later
hope
on in
so.
the future,
Yeah.
but she's done some absolute brilliant work around
Mm.
creating psychological safety with her year 11s. So she had a group of disengaged children in year 11, disengaged girls. And they were refusing to get involved with PE, really struggling, really playing up. And she just sat them down and said, "Look, what can we do as a department to make you feel safe in PE? What can we do to help you have a really great PE experience?" And it boiled down to they didn't like getting changed. They didn't like the changing room, so they trialed children coming in their PE kit for year 11s only. Got every single child engaged, got every person working. Now they've drip fed that into the rest of their curriculum. Straight away their engagement in PE with their most challenging children has gone through the roof. So just a really simple solution around using student voice. Like what is the issue? What is stopping you from engaging? And then putting that into practice. And that's through Kate and also a brilliant head teacher who's really trauma informed, part of the Hearts Project up in Liverpool. Just won a national award with Pearson Education Awards. But I think we missed a huge opportunity post lockdown around kind of revamping what schools are and moving away from kind of that factory production line into creating some really special places and creating amazing memories for our young people.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you think then, from your own experiences, that changing rooms are maybe not psychologically safe spaces for most of our children? Or can
Yeah,
they be?
well, I think what we noticed post lockdown was there was huge anxiety around getting changed again. I had more parental kind of conversations, complaints, discussions around changing rooms post lockdown than of any other topic in kind of 17, 18 years of teaching, which I found fascinating. And we did our best to do a lot of work with Simon Scarborough, does some brilliant work on gender equity around catering for our LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
But it was everyone. It wasn't just our LGBTQ plus community that were struggling with the anxiety. It was a lot of children that you wouldn't really anticipate. So it's been really interesting. Kate Reynolds tweeted the other day about the feedback she's had at parents' evenings, and parents are just so thankful that they've kind of got away with the changing rooms at Belvedere, and that was just really interesting as an observer to read that and see how parents and children perceive that.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see how other schools respond to that case study as well, and see whether it maybe plays into their decision making. Is there anything else you'd like to share because we kind of talked a little bit about the midsection, but there might be something else you
Yeah,
have about.
yeah. I came up with this concept of RISE because I wanted to teach the link between physical activity and mental well-being in a really memorable, kind of simple way for children to understand, so that they could carry on with that post once they've left my care. So R stands for repeaters, which are repeatable activities like running, swimming, cycling, that widen our children's window of tolerance. Deep breathing in yoga has the same impact for our introverts. But that's kind of the R of it. I is inclusive teams, and that's around making children feel love, making them feel like they belong in our areas, and that's really important through the release of oxytocin. So it's about really prioritising the inclusive aspect of our teams. Like, how do we make every child in our school teams, in our lessons, in our form times, in our school community feel like they belong? Because if they don't find it in PE or in school, then they'll find it outside in gangs, and we really don't want that, because we all have this need to feel safe and to belong.
Yeah.
The S is stress busters. So that's about pushing against the force or resistance to widen our window of tolerance. And that can be like contact rugby, that can be kicking a football, that can be pushing against an object, like press ups, that can be pushing against a weight. That can be yoga, pushing against the floor. There's so many different ways that we can do it. And then the final one is E, is energizers. And that's about high tempo exercises. When we're struggling with our mental health, we retreat from the world. And this is all about bringing us back into the world through stuff like dance shows. It worked fantastically with a group of year 8 girls with the dance show that we put on. It can be stuff like circuit training, hit training, but they're designed to be general categories that can be a mixture of two, but just to help young people work out, right, when I'm feeling low, I can go for a run, or I'll walk, or take the dog for a walk, or when I'm feeling really peed off, then I can go to the fitness suite and just smash out some weights and take their frustration out in a safe and controlled way, rather than than hurting other children or other objects. So kind of that's the concept around Rise.
Yeah. So is that something that you're getting young children to think about in secondary school and continue to embed in upper secondary school as they move through to Key Stage 4, and then something that they continue to think about for the rest of their lives? And then where does it start?
So we've got primary schools. Primary schools teaching their children this, because the conversations I'm having with head teachers at primary schools are that these issues around mental health are becoming are affecting younger and younger children, particularly post lockdown. So it's about using the expertise of the teacher to implement it in a way that best suits their setting. So for me, in my school, I introduced it from year 7 all the way through to year 11. I made it compulsory because the need was so high. Whereas a lot of the other schools I work with, they will work at Key Stage 3 only, or Key Stage 4 only, or during form time. So it's totally up to the PE teacher or the teacher across the whole school to implement in a way that best suits them, because no one knows their children like the teachers in front of them. Like I don't know these children up in Liverpool brilliantly. Like Kate knows them a lot better than I do, so I trust Kate to implement the program in the way that best suits their needs. But yeah, it can be at any age. It's all about, like, but throughout my teaching career, it's like, can we find at least one sport or physical activity that children are passionate about, so that they can carry on doing that long after they've left our care? And it's kind of a continuation of that, really, just really helping young people identify what they can do when they're feeling stressed out, or to manage their mental well-being, so that we've got a lot less children needing specialist support, which at the moment we've got 5 Wembley stadiums full of children waiting for mental health professional support, and like many of our listeners that have taken trips to Wembley, and you know how big just getting one minibus of children into that stadium and out again is. But when you think of times 5, then it's pretty scary as a parent, as a teacher, to think about all those brilliant children that are struggling. And for every single child, there's a story, there's a family, there's a community that's being affected. And that's really my passion, is how can we transform those life chances as much as possible.
Yeah. Amazing. You speak so passionately about it as well, Neil. It's inspiring. So off the back of that, what would you then, you've kind of alluded to this, what would you encourage PE teachers to do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in their practice or in their own general lives?
Yeah, like I would focus on the big picture. Like, we get so drawn into kind of the detail of teaching children, but sometimes we miss the bigger thing. And I was certainly guilty of that. I was so focused on the curriculum map and how we're going to shape this and model this, and that I forgot about relationships. I forgot about all the stuff that I used to do really well early on in my career. And I think Dr. Vicky Randall said it brilliantly on your podcast the other week, when she taught the child is bigger than the subject is bigger than the activity, and therefore the activity requires careful consideration. And for me, I was like, Vicky, you've just summed up what I've kind of noticed throughout my kind of 19 years of my teaching career. Like, that traditional PE curriculum worked really well in my first school. And when I went to my second school, it wasn't working for the vast majority of children, and I had to adapt to those children. Like, you won't find someone who loves invasion games more than me. I absolutely love football, cricket, tennis, rugby. That is why I love sport. But it's not about me. It's about the children. It's about what they need to have happy, healthy lives. So and everyone's setting's different. Like, this isn't a blanket approach for everyone, but focus on the big picture. What's working for your children? What isn't working? So that would be the number one. Second one is smile. Be intentional about creating brilliant relationships that make young people feel psychologically safe, supported, and able to contribute. And then the third one would be to use student voice to make PE personally relevant. I think that when we talk about features of meaningful PE, that's the one that really stands out to me.
Yeah.
And that can mean that PE looks very different for different children, but how do we make it personally relevant so that every child that comes into our area has a brilliant experience, develops skills that they need, and wants to go on to be physically active for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, brilliant. Listeners will know that I'm unashamedly a big advocate of the meaningful PE work, and I think that the guiding pedagogies of democratic practices falls in line with exactly what you're saying about belonging and feeling valued and part of something that's bigger than themselves, and and that's really powerful to give them the option, the autonomy and agency to have some say in what they're doing to make it meaningful to them, and that's something that I advocate. Or try to get our trainees to think about often as well. So I'm glad that we're on a similar sort of page there. So what's working for you at the minute, and then what are the challenges that you're facing? We'll start with what's working for you
Yeah,
first.
so I'm really fortunate in, like, since I stepped away from the classroom last year, I go around to the schools that we work with and create case studies about their brilliant work, and I get to see so many fantastic PE teachers that are implementing the program so brilliantly, and then we write up a case study about them. We use some data to look at their intent, their implementation, and impact. We use the school wellbeing scorecard that's free for people to use to track their provision. We then use the adapted Warwick Edinburgh mental wellbeing scale to track teachers' perceptions of student wellbeing, but also students use it as well for their own perceptions. And then we take any other school data. We tell the story of these brilliant teachers. We've now got about probably 10 case studies on the website now about different ways different schools have implemented it. And so that's what I really love seeing. And we've got some great case studies coming up as well. So that's what's working really well. In terms of challenges that I'm facing, my challenge is, how do I get mainstream teachers to understand that the childhood trauma is relevant to your classrooms right now? So, for example, with the data that's gone into adverse childhood experiences, on average, at least 1 in 2 of us have suffered at least one adverse childhood experience. Now, I was fortunate enough to listen to Professor Barry Carpenter, who's the first professor in this country in mental health and education at the Youth Sports Trust in 2022. And he was talking about kind of that none of us are going to get away scot-free from kind of the impact of lockdown. So if we take that as a base point, that everyone's got at least one adverse childhood experience for our children at the moment because of lockdown, the lack of play, the lack of that ability to develop our physical strengths, our creativity, our social skills, stress relief through play, which is just so vital to a child's development. We have that as a baseline as one, then we can start to understand why did behaviour become so challenging in a post-lockdown education world? Why have teachers that have taught for years and done it really, really well all of a sudden felt like they couldn't teach anymore, and why is that struggling? So that's a big challenge. And the second one is, how can I communicate how trauma-informed practice can be used to optimize performance for all people, for all young people, whether they've suffered from childhood traumas or not. So you look at the England cricket team, like Baz McCullum, Ben Stokes done a brilliant job with Zach Crawley and Harry Brook around creating psychological safety so that they could perform at their optimum level in the Ashes. Now, we can do that for our young people through exam preparation, or making a step up in school sport, or public speaking. So there's so many different ways that we can support our young people through being intentional about creating psychological safety. And that's kind of one of my big challenges at the moment. How do I communicate that to our brilliant community of PE teachers, that this is worth having a look at, because this could help your practice?
Yeah, it is a big challenge because it's a big shift in thinking, isn't it? So I think you just got to keep doing what you're doing and keep banging the drum, keep putting the case studies out there and spreading the word. Just for listeners, where can they go to read those?
So if you go to futureaction.co.uk, click on blogs, and there's, like, I think we released our 100th blog yesterday since we started this. So there's a whole range of topics around the case studies, trauma informed practice, early intervention mental wellbeing programs, what schools have done, how we can optimize performance. There's a whole range of free resources there that people can try.
Brilliant. Also, do you think, because I was speaking to Sam Moyne about this in a previous episode, about when he was had an increased awareness of his own mental health and well-being, that he became a better teacher, and then his own mental health and well-being improved as well. So do you think there's that an increased awareness of trauma informed practice is going to be beneficial to the teacher as well as the young people?
100%. 100%. It just develops your empathy and compassion for young people you teach, but also for yourself. Like, teaching is hard. Teaching is really hard. Like, it's the best job in the world, but it is really challenging. And we need to do a better job of looking after our teachers in this country. But
Yeah.
as what I realized when I had my own challenges with my own mental well-being or mental health was that I had to look after myself as well. I had to prioritize my own well-being. I had to look at the healthy habits that we teach on the Rise Up program and really prioritize sleep and prioritize and saying enough's enough. Like, there's only
Yeah.
so many hours in a day, and as teachers, we give so much to so many other people. And like, sometimes we're a better teacher when we have that break, when we have that
Yeah.
step aside and do that. So definitely, yes.
Yeah, I go on about something to our trainees about walking the talk, because we often will give messages to young children. We'll often say, well, this is what we'd ask you to do, but are we practicing what we preach? You know, because it's important that we do that, right? We need to be our advocates and ambassadors for what we're expecting from young children, but also for our own benefit. So yeah, brilliant stuff. Could you then try as best as you can to summarize some of the key messages for the listener?
Yeah, definitely. So number one is be intentional about building outstanding relationships using your face, voice, body. When we do that, we amplify all our other pedagogies. Second one is give students student agency and consider wellbeing programs so that PE is personally relevant to as many learners as possible. And then three, just make it fun. Make young people feel safe, make them feel supported and able to contribute in our brilliant subject. And I just want to finish off by saying that to me, PE teachers are absolute heroes. I want to say thank you for all the brilliant work that you do. And if anybody wants to find out more, we've got a range of complementary resources if you're looking to take that first step into kind of the wellbeing world in PE.
Perfect. A brilliant plug at the end. Well deserved. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thanks so much for having me, Nathan.
I've really, really enjoyed the conversation. Some really pertinent messages, and I hope the listeners will have enjoyed it as much as I have. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. Cheers.